How you doing, everyone? I want to tell you a little bit about my personal home server solution. It's called Unraid. It's a Linux-based OS. It actually runs directly off your RAM after you load it in through a USB. You can run many of your favorite programs on this OS through something called Dockers, which you can see here. You can also run virtual machines, and you can also have shares set up for Windows and other computers in your household, where you and your family can access and store data. You can also do that remotely if you choose. Here we'll go over the pricing a little bit. To start, you can actually download and use the full functionality of Unraid, I believe, for 30 days, as it says here, 30-day trial. After that, your Unraid server is going to continue to work until you need to reboot again, which eventually you will, or it will shut down. And at that point, you're going to have to pay to get it back up and running to the way it was during the trial period. You can also buy it. All you need is a trial, though. The trial will show you that it's definitely worth the $60 for a lifetime. Buy once, use for life. Okay, no subscription, no hidden fees. That's what kind of software this is, what kind of operating system this is. Get the basics up to 6 attached storage devices for $69 or $59. Plus 89 and Pro is 129. So 89 for 12 attached storage, you get double that for only $30 more at that point. And then if you went just another 70 on top of this, get to the Pro level, which is unlimited. Eventually I'll probably just buy this one. But for now, my storage case is a little too small to fit unlimited attached storage devices. So I'm going to stick with the basic. But at any point you can upgrade later. It might not be as quite a good deal here, but it's pretty close. It's a prorated amount that you already paid for the basic. So in my eyes, it's definitely worth that, but I would recommend starting with the free trial, seeing how you like it, seeing if you can configure different things, seeing if you actually want to spend the money. But like I said, it is a one-time fee. Never have to pay it again. We have here the dashboard, or the homepage as you would call it. Starting up here, we have the name of the server, description, and then your level of operating system. I have basic. There are 2 more tiers above mine. Here's the uptime that my server has been up. I took it down for maintenance the other day, so it's been up for 1 day and 6 hours, 2 minutes. Here's your motherboard, the manufacturer, BIOS date, etc. Also the temperature of your motherboard, processor, temperature, processor stats. Well, this is some rather old hardware this one's running on here. As you can see, it's an old Lenovo. Right after IBM was taken over, changed to Lenovo. So yeah, 2014ish, 2015. That's when this CPU was from. Here's the RAM listed, and like I said, some of that is going to be taken up by the OS that's running off that RAM. It's not reading from your flash drive once it's loaded. Here's some network traffic that's going through. You want to set up some VPNs through WireGuard. You would do that right here. Some fans and their RPMs. I got 3 fans listed there. Here's the GPU, which is doing nothing right now. But if he was, he'd have some stats as well. Docker containers, like I said before, they are where your programs will run in. And there's tons of different programs you can use for the Dockers, or that have specific Dockers that will load into Unraid. Also virtual machines. Here are the shares, CCT, closed circuit TV cameras, or security cameras. Data drive 1, data drive 2, app data, domains for the VMs, ISOs for the VMs, system drive, app data for the Dockers. Here's the users. You got the root, and you got the another user, protected user. Here you have the array. Now these are the disks that are part of the array, right? There's also another disk that's the cache down here. So that's separate from these ones up here. You get all these temperatures, status, smart readings, utilization as well. This one I believe is an extra solid state drive to run anything I need to run quick off of. This right here is data drive 1, data drive 2. Parity drive. Parity drive keeps a copy of these drives in case one of them goes down so it can rebuild. Alright? Cache makes things quicker. Gonna speed everything up for you. You can also use mover. So it'll send information to the cache and then you can push it over to your data drive, which is normally, data drives are normally the slower ones. The ones with the mechanical parts. Cache drive is an SSD. So. Here's the parity here. Some stats for you. Parity check. Make sure that I won't lose any data, and to set up the extra drive to back everything up takes about 10 hours. So I try to do that just once a week if I can. Now what that means is that once a week you may screw yourself and lose some data, but you're only a week's worth of data. You know, not a bad trade-off for this 10 hours because it's a long time to have your server be less available. Not by much, but less available. It'd be too often to do that daily, I think. Most of the day would be spent doing that. I feel like your drives would just die. So I feel like checking the parity once a week, it's not a bad idea, but I'll check online to see what they recommend in that respect. Here's the main page, a little bit different from the information you had on the home page or the dashboard. This is going to give you a little bit more detail. You have the model numbers of the drives. This, as you can see, is a Samsung SSD 250. This is a Samsung SSD 500. This is just a regular USB now. Here's the array devices, like I said before. Here's the pool devices. Cache is considered a pool. And the flash drive here. Boot device, flash drive. Unassigned, nothing's unassigned. So if you had a device plugged into that computer and it was not assigned to the array, it would be listed here. Here's where you will set up your shares if you want to make remote shares. If you want to share them over the internet and have people log in from away from your network. Here's an old device that I had removed. So there's a lot of functionality here. You can stop your array, you can check your array, view the history, spin up, spin down, clear stats. You can also move, like I said before. The cache is gonna, if you have the cache set up to store data, you then move your data. I have mine scheduled to run daily, 5 a.m. Reboot, shut down. Here we have the shares tab. You can see lots of different shares here, so I can access them on my local computers. Available. Most available just through the Windows because I don't use Linux, but this one's also available through Linux. Anyway, app data, CCTV, data 1, data 2, domains, ISOs, media system. This is an old one. I'll probably delete that. These little things mean they're unencrypted at the current moment. So you can encrypt these drives as well, which I had done. This says unprotected. Now that is because the parity hasn't synced since Sunday. So Sunday in the middle of the night, parity's going to start syncing. So anyway, all that's listed here, and this is where you would see your dish shares that are available remotely, which I don't have any set up right now. Here we have the users page. See, two users, root, which is the original user, and then another one I had added because Windows file permissions were a little weird on multiple devices throughout the house. I believe you can only have one coming through the same device. One user logged in on like an IP at a time. So if you want to log into multiple users, multiple Windows devices, I think you need two. So I had to do that anyway. I'll show you how to add a user real quick. Click add user, username, description. You can add a picture as well. So if this is something that you have multiple people in your business access, if you're a small business and you have this running, Unraid running as your server for the business, and you have maybe a couple IT guys, set them up with some access here and change their picture. You can also change their permissions. I'll show you that later in a different section after you add their passwords and everything. Quite a bit of options and settings here in this page. Try to go through a few. Others I may just skip by or glance over. Now, the CPU pinning, that's pretty cool. I'll show you some of that. As you can see up top, we have the VMs there, my 3 different VMs, and then where they would be pinned to CPU, and that is the threads. 0 and 6 is thread 0 or thread 1, and thread 7, effectively, if you don't count the 0, because this is a 6-core 12 thread. So each of these here OS is getting 2 cores or 4 threads. So not much, to be honest with you, but I don't use them often. Here's where you would set up your Docker threads. So if you want a specific Docker that always runs, on certain threads so it has no interference with any other Docker, here's where you would do that. You can see here the only ones that overlap are these two here, the antivirus and what is a backup software. And they don't even overlap completely, as this one overlaps partially with this one as well. This one has its own two cores. This one has 1 core. This one has 1 core. This shares with that one. This one has 2 cores. That shares with this one, who has 3 cores. Okay? That has 3 cores because it's one of the most important things that I use myself. So here's where you would change all that different stuff. You can also turn all this off and allow your CPU to control it. Oh, I figure it's a little easier this way, but not quite sure what happens if one gets overloaded. Does it take some of the other empty CPU cores or use some of the other power from the other CPU cores? I don't really know. Let's see, I haven't looked at this yet. CPU isolation. Isolation allows the user to specify CPU cores that are explicitly reserved for assignment to VMs or Dockers. Okay. So if you want to do, it's important for gaming VMs. So if you had a gaming VM, which you actually can do, you can put a graphics card in here. You can turn this into not only your server, but it could also be your gaming PC. And it doesn't even have to be a PC. It could be a Linux thing you could run Windows inside of, which is something that eventually I'll set up as well. But here's where you would isolate specific CPU cores to run with those games or those VMs. And I guess you're saying that it's not used by the system. But we all know what date and time is. This settings here. I'm going to change specific settings for the disk. Enable auto start. Put down time. Disk warning at percentage. So you want to get a warning, say if your hard drive's getting full. Probably a pretty good idea to do. Smart notifications and settings for that as well. Here we have some Docker settings. You can turn the Docker off here. Stop timeout if the program's not responding. When do you, or it's responding to the shutdown? When do you force it to stop? So after 30 seconds, it'll force it to stop. The location, the version, all types of different stuff that may be important. This here is just the server name. This would be where you would give different kind of access to your different users or take away certain access. If you want them to just be able to access very basic stuff, you could do that here. You also got network settings, global share settings. Here's for your internet and such, how the network works on your server. Here's where you would have the settings for your remote shares and other shares, not just remote ones, I believe. Here's for your uninterrupted power supply settings. Here's where you would have the VM manager. Here's the VM manager here. Turn it off from here. Storage path, ISO path. These Windows drivers are important for some of your peripherals and other things when trying to make a Windows virtual machine. Your network source that you will use for those Dockers. Other settings. Here's where you would set, this is very important here to allow a graphics card to pass through your server into the Docker. Took me a while for the mining software to get that to work because of this. That's pretty much it. As stated before, Linux shares, Windows shares, and remote shares. Settings for all those here. Your system logs would be here. Your VPN manager would be here, where you would set up the WireGuard. Scheduler here. Notification settings as well. And display. Schedule here will allow you to do things like that before, the mover, the cache. That'll be able to tell system when to do that, or when to check the parity of your drives, which is very important. User utilities, these are all actual plugins, which we'll get into soon, that I installed to this server. This is for fan controls, control them automatically, GPU statistics, system temps, which we saw before. This is monitoring your EMP, unassigned devices. Community applications is actually an important thing to have. If you don't have that, your server may not run properly. Here, what this is, Intel drivers, video drivers. Here is the Docker tab. Bunch of different Dockers on here. I'm not going to explain them all because some of them I don't even use anymore, to be honest with you. And some of them I'm going to delete soon. However, we do have one that I do use here, and that's the Clam antivirus. So that's checking my files to see if there's any infections. I can just check the logs if I want. Everything seems good. Activating, checking databases and stuff you want to see, you know. Okay. Testing database. Yeah, everything's good. Next we have ZoneMinder, which I will show you. It has a graphic interface, just like Unraid does. However, it's Linux-based Docker. But here we have that. Front door, office window, back door. Here are the recordings. We have 17 recordings this hour by the front door. We have 5 this day, office windows. We have 4 back door today. Okay. Here is the amount during the day that the camera had recorded. So this gets recorded to a location on the server, which is then backed up by this program here, Duplicati. Now this will back up that location to Google Drive every 30 minutes. So in the case that somebody breaks in, steals your computer, hopefully it takes them 30 minutes to find out where that camera goes to. I mean, computer's not right by all the cameras. You know, how would they really know? To be honest. And what kind of thief is actually looking and thinking about that? But anyway, it's possible for them to actually come in, grab the footage, and get out with that 30-minute time slot. So may change that in the future, but right now I just want to update it every 30 minutes. So that's going to save those files to Google Drive in case for some reason your hard drive goes down or your computer disappears with the hard drive in it. Next we'll look at Jellyfin. This is one of the servers, media servers that I run. This one's a little bit more user-friendly. It's not country blocked as well for people who live in possibly Africa or other places around the world. There's an app for this on their phones. So this is why I have that here. It's not quite pretty as Plex. I'm not going to show you Plex. If you want to know what Plex is, go look that up online. Maybe I'll show that off one day. Looks a lot better than Jellyfin's going to look. However, kind of bare bones, it works pretty great so far from what I've seen. I'll show you that real quick. This is some stuff from my servers, movies, shows, music, memories, which is our, vacation photos and such. So that's what this looks like. So that can also run off Unraid. One more thing to show you would be the VPN I'm running. He's running from something called Gluten. That is also a possibility for you to do with your Unraid server. This here is the old cryptocurrency miner I used to use. I still haven't deleted it. Haven't been, mining at all, especially with this server, but for a while I was mining with the server through this app here. So even cryptocurrency mining can be done here, as well as if you just want a browser to look at Chrome. That too. Here's the VMs tab. The few VMs that I set up. I still haven't got the SteamOS one to work. Sure, I'm just configuring it wrong, but anyway, eventually I think I might be able to get SteamOS to run on here, which would be pretty cool. If you don't know, SteamOS is the operating system that the game client Steam made. It was made actually way back in the day, and it was kind of crappy, but it seemed like they've been working on it through the years. They've done a pretty good job. Now they have it on a handheld device that is actually pretty badass from what I've heard. You can play most of their Steam catalog on that handheld device and take it pretty much anywhere with you. It's probably the best handheld device out right now that you can game on. If that's something that you are interested in, me myself, I don't game when I'm out. That's for being in real life. I game at home when I'm not around other people, not doing normal things. However, if that's your cup of tea, look into the Steam Deck in the SteamOS. Also have Windows 10 here. And as you can see, Windows 11 as well. They both work fine. I'll show you a little bit how to add a VM as well. So you'd click Add VM, and then here, as you can see, they have kind of templates you can pick for different kind of OSs, and then there's many options. A whole bunch of Windows versions, wow, all the way back to XP, and that's something. Server 2003, they got server options too. I haven't used like most of these. You can do a custom too, if you want to set it up a certain way that none of these if you click these here, they will have the icon displayed like it was on the other page. Just say we're doing a Windows 11. Do you want the auto start with your server? I would always say no. Now, here's why. I got into a problem where my server would keep rebooting a shitty VM or a crap VM, a corrupt VM, and it would crash the server every time. So I would always suggest no. I had to eventually delete that VM of the hard way. You can name it, how you want to do the CPU mode, emulate a CPU, or do you want to pass through? Normally, I'd recommend passing through, unless you could do emulate if you have tons of cores. Say you select here with the pins, like I showed you before. Memory, initial, memory max. So I'm assuming if your VM needs more RAM, it'll up it there. Machine here, I believe this is something. Okay. Yeah, the machine type option primarily affects the success of many users be able to let certain hardware and GPUs pass through. So like I was saying before with the downstream on the PCI ACS override, that was important. This could also be important too if you're running a VM and you want to pass through the GPU. So you want to make sure you select the right one. I'm not sure which one would be which for which GPU either. BIOS here, you can set your BIOS VPN type. EPM, CBIOS, enable US boot, it's a little description for that too, hyper-threading, USB controller, 2.0, 2.0. You would pick your OS to install as well there. Your drivers, if you're doing Windows, you take the Windows drivers. I'm not sure if this really matters, but maybe if you have a CD drive. This location. Yes, there's tons of options here, as you can see. Graphics card. So if you want to just start the VM, make sure it's working, then download the drivers, which I would recommend is you do virtual, and then later you would switch it to graphics card and hope that everything's set up to pass through properly. So let's say you'd probably do that. Sound card, select here, your network. Again, we're going with the Bro. Bro was the one that Docker goes through as well. Boot order for your different USBs. This is probably a keyboard or mouse or some crap. Yeah, that's plugged in there. So other PCI devices, then you'd create there. Here's where you would download your apps, search for different things that you could want to possibly run in Unraid. And like I said, the possibilities are pretty vast because this is actually open source hardware and there's many developers that contribute to this. Some of them may not be great. Some of them are really great. This guy here, he's very big. Space Invader 1, he's very important to the Unraid scene. If you Google his name on YouTube, you'll come up with tons of videos. Let's see, who else do we have here? Smartphone Lover, I have something else from him. Yeah, I don't know. Linux server, that's another important developer. There's gaming servers that you can set up here as well. There's one for Minecraft somewhere. Yep, there's one of the Minecraft ones. So if you wanted to have a Minecraft server on your Unraid server, family, or for your son, his friends, you can certainly do that. I think there's one for Rust as well. That's the gameplay. Look. Yeah, there's a Rust server thing as well. Okay. Yeah, well, that's a game. This is gonna serve. This is gonna serve add to your server, but this is actually for the game here. Thanks for cryptocurrency now. If you want to run a Bitcoin node, really do that. Home automation. Something I don't use that people use a lot on here. I have a Raspberry Pi that runs it. Home Assistant is a home automation. The one that I use, the official, I would use the official, but another option here by Linux Server, who's a good developer. It's for your home automation. This will allow you to turn off and on some smart lights, maybe control your robot vacuum, your fridge, TVs, you know, pretty much sky's the limit. I have another video about that. Maybe I'll link it below. But yeah, there's tons of options for you to download different apps to add different functionality to your server. So pretty much almost anything you can think you want to do, add to your server, either already here, can be done by somebody else or even by you. So keep that in mind. Overall, I'd recommend Unraid to pretty much anybody that wants a home server system for cheap, that is reliable, won't let you down, pretty easy to configure. Because I'll tell you right now, if you get yourself a Windows server and you don't know how to use it properly, either way, Windows is very glitchy. Some people try to use just a Windows system, and you're going to run into tons of issues. Said before that I have been up for, let's see, my system has been up for 1 day, 6 hours. I mean, I've had this thing go for 40 days before I actually shut it down. So it's completely reliable. Compatibility is extremely amazing with the Dockers. Amount of open source development for those. You can add virtual machines. The shares can be shared remotely, can be shared through Windows, Linux, Mac. Arrays are protected through parity. Cache adds for quicker transfers. So many good things about this. I could spend an hour probably talking about it, and I probably almost did. But I would just recommend to anybody that they look into it for their home. They may need someone to monitor for them, but once that person figures it out, as long as they're a little bit tech savvy, they can easily run something like this on their own. Or you could always pay somebody to do it for a small fee. However, either way, it's definitely worth it for your home.